My name is Mike Franklin, the property tax guy, and this is going to be my first edition of the Assess the Assessor series. And I decided to create a YouTube channel to document the behaviors of the assessors that I've had involvement with in upstate New York. And I decided to start off with two assessors and choose an example of a good assessor and choose an example of a bad assessor. And it's unfortunately it wasn't ideal as to as to which one I chose, because it turns out that the first bad assessor example turns out to have recently been deceased. And I obviously do not want to be picking on the deceased, but I tend to be literal, and I simply just want to tell it like it is. And this assessor was the assessor for the town of Marcellus, and turns out he's also the assessor for he either was or had been the assessor for, I think at one point I read that he was assessor for 13 towns. According to his webpage, which is still up, he was the assessor for town of Bradford, Fabius, Harford, Locke, Marcellus, Pompey, Solon, and village of Hancock. And but anyway, I had an interaction with him in the town of Marcellus. I had 3 cases in the town of Marcellus, and they had done a recent reval. And I'd called him on the phone to discuss those cases. And basically, he had no interest in talking to me. He said he's been the assessor here for 50 years and that he knows the properties and it is what it is. And, I attempted to have him quantify his figures. He refused to do so. And, it's so because he said so, which is kind of the classic issue with assessors. It's so because I said so is not a proper valuation method. And I also had a property in Pompey that I had to handle, and I spoke to him on that, and it was the same routine. He just simply would not quantify his work, and it's so because he said so. And I found that to be unacceptable. I foiled his records, and he evaded my FOIL requests. Not only did he evade my FOIL requests, but he was assisted in evading my FOIL requests by the town attorney. And I'll get into that in a little bit. But so I subsequently, finalized my analysis and took him to the Board of Assessment Review, and we won significant reductions in all 3 of those cases. A lot of times the Board of Assessment Review will be in tune with the assessor. And I was quite surprised, I figured I was going to have to go before the Small Claims Assessment Review to get any justice in this case. But yeah, the attorney for the town of Marcellus at that time, and what we're talking about was cases in 2021. The attorney for the town of Marcellus was James Gascon, Gascon, and Mr. Gascon was in on the evasion of FOIL. They dragged their feet. They refused to send me what it is that I asked. They attempted to charge me money for things. They created copies. It reminded me of some of those law movies where they inundate you with what was it, the Flash of Genius, where the Ford Motor Company was trying to overwhelm this guy with data so he couldn't figure out what was going on. So they gave him just piles and piles of data that, just an entire garage full of data to just make just make it difficult for the guy. And that's what this assessor did. So finally, he tried to charge, or the town attorney did, and so he sent me about 3 or 4 inches worth of paperwork. He sent me the code enforcement officer's file, all kinds of stuff that had nothing to do with assessment, just to be a jerk, and so. But in retrospect, obviously the assessor was he recently died at 79 years old, and he'd been assessor for many years, and so I'm sure he and the town attorney were friends, and the town attorney was defending him, and he just thought that was probably the loyal thing to do, but the thing is that that's not the way it's supposed to work. What they're supposed to do is simply follow the law, and when somebody files a Freedom of Information request, you respond to it, and you just answer it the way you're supposed to. It's the law. But, that's not how he wanted to go. He wanted to abuse his authority as the town attorney, and the assessor wanted to abuse his authority as the assessor and use his power to do nothing and to stonewall us and that's what it is that he did. Now, like I said, he was 79 years old, and maybe he wasn't at the top of his game at this juncture. So I'm not going to disparage his entire career. I'm just telling you what transpired in this individual case. And in this individual case, what I expected of him was when I called him, I expected him to listen to what it is that I was saying. I expected him to look into it. He had to do a townwide valuation. It's a very difficult thing to do. I respect the difficult jobs that the assessors have. I respect the good assessor, but it's his job to listen to the taxpayers and their representatives and see if they might have a point, and look into it specifically, see if an assessor has to apply mass assessment techniques because they have hundreds if not thousands of properties to value. So it's only natural that there might be some mistakes here or there, and if somebody points one out, you don't have to roll over for people that don't like paying their taxes. If somebody brings a situation to your attention, it's your job to look into it, and it's your job to have an opinion of value. And if you agree, make an adjustment. If you don't agree, point people to their appeal options. It's as simple as that. But he wanted to fight with me. He wanted to evade my information requests, and my information requests were nothing other than to try to get to the bottom of what the proper figure was. But that's not what he wanted to do. He just wanted to fight, and this isn't about fighting. It's about getting to the correct figure. So this assessor's name was Lawrence Fitts, and again, I don't mean to disparage him personally. What I'm talking about is nothing other than what transpired in this case. I'm hoping he was a good assessor for many, many years, and I'm hoping that he didn't treat all taxpayers the way he treated me and my taxpayers. If he did, it's not good. But he was in the business of providing a public service for many years, and I respect that immensely. If he did the job properly. But my experience is that he didn't do the job properly. And this James Gascon attorney, his behavior was completely unethical. If that's a pattern of his behavior, probably shouldn't have a law license either, because it's just not the way you're supposed to operate as a town attorney or as an attorney in general. But as far as I'm concerned, that James Gascon was a bigger problem than the assessor was. The assessor may just have been, at the end of his career, and he wasn't at the top of his game in that particular case. But I appreciate the Board of Assessment Review They didn't give me everything I asked for. In one case, they gave us less than what we asked for. But I understand that I followed the logic of what they were doing. That particular property owner made a very bad purchase. He bought the property at a time of year where the weeds weren't there, and he didn't know that his waterfront was a frog pond. And but that was his mistake. And so I respect I respect the adjustment that they made on that one, and they made reasonable adjustments on the other two. And so I think that they got it right. Basically, wasn't exactly what my clients were looking for, but I think it was within any reasonable degree of error, and and I'm glad that they didn't require us to spend more time and effort going to small claims assessment review. And so I appreciate what the bar did. My guess is that the Board of Assessment Review understood what the situation was, and I appreciate them doing the right thing. But again, my objective is not to disparage Mr. Fitts. It's how he handled those three particular cases that I have an issue with. I don't have an issue with him personally. I do have an issue with the town of Marcellus attorney James Gascon. I do have a problem with him because his behavior was just over the top, inappropriate for an officer of the court. I mean, I think the town needs to reflect upon whether or not he's the right guy to be representing them. Again, this is Mike Franklin, the property tax guy. In my new series, Assess the Assessor. In this particular case, it was the assessor for the town of Marcellus in 2021. I understand they have a new assessor for 2022, and we're hoping for the best for him, so that things can improve in the town of Marcellus. And we obviously will give him that full opportunity, and we hope that he will listen to taxpayers, look into any concerns that they have, use his opinion of value, and make a determination, and then just point people to their appeal options. There's no reason to be confrontational. It should be friendly. It should be professional. This is Mike Franklin, the property tax guy.